Before my eyes, I saw my parents kneeling in apology. "Thank you for coming to this really stale place," my mom began while still kneeling. "We are truly grateful," my dad continued, also remaining on his knees. Little did they know that the person they thought could rescue their failing factory was the same people who left me, their daughter, all alone in the snowy mountains. "Please, raise your heads." As I urged them to look up, they lifted their faces in confusion at the familiar voice. "Kelly." They were comically flustered upon seeing me. "So, what should I do with them now?" "My name is Kelly Simpson. I live in a core city in the northern region. Although it's only bustling around the train station. Near my home there are many farms, and it's almost rural. Our family used to be a small blacksmith shop that made and repaired farm tools. But my great-granddad started manufacturing parts for agricultural machinery. And now we run a decent-sized factory. Around here, we're quite a well-known old family. The president of Simpson Machinery is my dad, Tom Simpson. The executive director is my mom, Hillary Simpson. I have a brother named Brian. Since childhood, he has been the pride of our parents for his intelligence. As is typical in the countryside, he was expected to take over as the eldest son, and he fulfilled those expectations by excelling academically and advancing to a prestigious high school. While my parents showered my brother with what could be considered excessive affection. On the other hand, I was neglected and lived in the shadows. In a conservative rural area, a girl is expected to leave home eventually. Compared to my brother, who was expected to inherit the family business, there seemed to be no hope for me. A girl who can't take over the family has no future. "Once you graduate high school, that's it," my dad said coldly. As a middle schooler, I was aware of my position and decided to focus on my studies. However, setting a goal as a middle schooler was challenging. I had no choice but to proceed. That determination alone kept me going. My brother and I were as different as could be. He was a leader at school, like the captain steering a large ship. On the other hand, I preferred physical activities over studying and ran around the rural hills and fields. Well, more like a mountain goat, perhaps. If there was any hope, it was that I had slightly better athletic abilities than my brother. Yet, fate was cruel. Lacking the talents of my brother, I studied hard, but my grades were depressingly low. Seeing this, my parents scoffed and said, "Impossible, impossible. You're different from Brian. Don't you realize how inferior you are?" Their words pierced my heart coldly, and I glared at them in anger. Although what my parents said was true, it was still frustrating. One day, the results of the midterm exams at school were returned. Despite studying hard, the results were shockingly poor. I didn't want anyone to know about this, but my parents ordered me to show them. Upon seeing them, they laughed scornfully at me. "Indeed, it's correct to have expectations for Brian. Spending more money on you is a waste." "Absolutely. Even though you share genes with Brian, you've got to be a mistake, huh?" I was forced to kneel before my parents and endure their scolding, praying for it to end quickly. During such times, my brother came to teach me how to study. He was shy about expressing his feelings to our parents. But to me, he was always a kind brother. Maybe it's partly my fault that our parents are so strict with you. But remember, I'm always on your side. I couldn't hold back my tears at his warm words. With his support, I believed I could overcome any difficulty. And then, I reached my second year of middle school. My brother had passed the entrance exams for a prestigious university in New York and had left home to start a new life. His room was now empty, and all that was left for me was the pressure of being compared to him. My brother was born with shining talents. In his shadow, I was trying to find my own path. I found more joy in slicing through the wind with my runs than flipping through study pages. I joined the track team at school. I loved running, so I aimed to become a long-distance runner. dreaming of getting a recommendation to a school famous for its relay race teams. While my brother excelled in academics, he struggled with sports. In that regard, I had an edge over him. However, my parents were more focused on my brother's test results than my running times. They never acknowledged my efforts, always doting only on my ever-successful brother. When Brian turned 20, my parents threw a grand celebration. Relatives gathered, and luxurious dishes were laid out at a famous local restaurant. However, as if I had no right to be there, I was made to stay home and watch the house. Brian is brilliant, so he deserves to enjoy delicious food. You're always just running around. Being with him would only make you miserable. Her words pierced my heart. I saw off my parents and brother, and ate instant noodles alone at home. Pouring hot water into the bowl, the rising steam highlighted the coldness in my heart. A mix of sadness and frustration overwhelmed me, and I couldn't stop my tears. That summer, while visiting home, my brother opened the door to the world of the internet for me. He had graduated from university and joined a major corporation. As a working adult, he suddenly seemed more mature. I'll give you this notebook. It's an old model, but it should work fine for the internet. I'd be happy if it helps you study a bit, he said with a smile, handing me the laptop. And try studying a little with this, he added, presenting a programming textbook. This was my small first step into the sea of IT. Honestly, I struggled with math and science. But I found programming surprisingly interesting, and I tinkered with the laptop daily. When the programs I created worked, it made me incredibly happy. And gradually, I began to see what I wanted to aim for. It wasn't a clear shape yet, but I felt as though its outline was starting to become visible. However, one day, that dream was abruptly shattered by my dad. Not studying again today and just playing on the computer? I'm programming. I'm not playing around. Lies. You're playing games on that computer, aren't you? Angered by his words, I snapped back. People like you, who are stuck in the past, just don't understand how to use a computer. This comment ignited my dad's anger. What did you say? How dare you, Kelly, talk back like that? Then, he snatched the laptop and threw it out the window. What are you doing? This is what happens when a high school student plays games all the time. Now, without the computer, you'll have to study seriously. I glared back at my dad, who was smirking, and went outside, where the laptop had been thrown. The screen was cracked, and the body was damaged. It wouldn't turn on, completely ruined. Just when I was beginning to understand the joy of programming and seeing a path to the future. As I gazed at the broken pieces of the laptop that my brother had given me, I was overwhelmed with sadness. It was now useless, broken, and I had no money to fix it. My new hope seemed to be fading away as I stood at the edge of despair. The precious gift from my brother was cruelly destroyed. Without the means to repair it, I felt helpless and hopeless. However, as my steps to school became heavier, a friend offered a ray of light. You should use the school computers, he suggested, and the teacher agreed, making my after-school hours my new refuge. The immovable presence of the desktop computers became a stable base for me. As I spent more and more time with the school computers, including weekends, the teacher noticed my passion and offered further support. I delved deep into the world of programming, gradually honing my skills during my high school life. During the summer of my sophomore year in high school, my brother invited me to attend a summer course in New York. I covered my travel expenses with part-time jobs. I stayed in my brother's company dormitory, attended daytime classes, and at night, my brother and his quirky friend John gave me special lessons. He's a bit of an oddball, but I guarantee he's not a bad guy, so relax. But don't tease him too much, he's not very familiar with women. What are you saying? I've held a girl's hand before. Oh really? When was that? Recently? In elementary school during folk dancing. His humorous response brought a genuine laugh from me. John's innocence added color to our summer moments. Along with smiles, my passion for programming ignited even further. By the end of the summer, my life entered a new chapter. Thanks to my brother and his friend John, I stepped into the world of programming and was captivated by its charm. John was different from my brother, but was well-mannered and had the air of a well-bred young man. He was certainly an odd fellow, but not a bad one. And I found myself somewhat fond of him. And now, I was facing my last summer in high school. I had apologized to my brother for the broken computer, but during the Obon holiday, when he returned home, he secretly brought me a second-hand laptop. It was a gift from John. That John guy, he's pretty well off. I asked him if he had any spare computers, and he gave this to me. My brother said with a mischievous smile. He wanted to give it to you, so he brought it right over. Seems like you've made quite an impression. What are you talking about? While I blushed, my brother playfully tapped my head and then offered various advice, significantly improving the precision of my programs. It's surprising that you took an interest in programming. Well, it's interesting. If you make a mistake with the numbers, it behaves unexpectedly, and when you finally get it working, it's truly moving. However, programming was more than just a hobby for me. It was my passion. And the joy of seeing my own programs come to life was irreplaceable. With that passion in my heart, I decided to leave home. I cut ties with the university and chose to work for a company in New York. I was determined to carve my own path. With the new laptop in hand, I was ready to step forward into the future. I would continue to improve my programming skills and pursue my dreams. My story was far from over. On a cold winter day, as I packed for the start of my new life, my parents called me. Expecting the usual unpleasant conversation, I was surprised when they suggested, "Why don't we go on a family trip?" It was a distant memory from my childhood. My uncle had won a stay at a spa hotel in a raffle. Excited somewhere deep inside, I looked forward to the family trip that included my brother. On the day of the trip, we headed for the hotel, located in a snowy area, in my dad's car. My parents, who usually didn't talk much, were unusually cheerful. The conversation focused on my brother's job and how my dad's factory was struggling due to the recession, ignoring me. The hotel was more luxurious than I imagined, with open-air baths and delicious food that truly relaxed me. However, the kindness of my parents felt strangely unnatural. Late at night, as I got up to use the bathroom, I overheard them whispering in their room. "We don't have money to feed her. If we leave her behind, she'll understand." Yes, like a big cleanup. They were plotting to kick me out of the house. I'm being discarded. I had no choice but to prepare myself. With a heavy heart, we headed home. The ride back was quiet, as everyone was tired. And conversation didn't flourish. I was to be dropped off at the station and then head to my new employer's dormitory in New York. Suddenly, my dad said, "I'd like some coffee. Isn't there a vending machine around?" "There's a parking area ahead with a vending machine," my brother replied, and my dad smirked. "All right, let's take a break there." Soon, the parking sign appeared. "Kelly, go buy the coffee." As expected, I got out of the car and headed to the vending machine next to the toilet. I bought hot coffee for my dad and brother, tea for my mom, and milk tea for myself. When I turned to return to the car, my dad was taking my suitcase out. "Here we part ways. It's a waste of time and fuel to take you to the station." Yeah, if I show a bit of kindness, she's as happy as a dog, it's laughable. "What, but the station is still far from here? Either walk or run. You're in track and field, you have plenty of stamina. This is harsh. Well, time for you to live on your own." Okay, big cleanup completed. Really, she was just a large piece of junk. While my brother remained silent, he placed my coat on the suitcase for me. Standing in the cold parking lot, I watched the car drive away. Left by my family in the chilling parking area, I had to accept my fate. Yet, somewhere inside, I felt this was the start of something new. My first steps into a new life began in this snow-covered place. This was the opening scene of a new chapter in my story. 10 years later, I returned to my hometown. Now, I was struggling daily as a project leader at a new company. That day, I was visiting a factory in my hometown for work. I felt somewhat excited. Yet the painful memories of the past also resurfaced. Soon, I arrived at the familiar factory. Kelly. I heard a familiar voice. Brian. My brother, who had arrived earlier by car, approached me, waving his hand. I was worried you might get lost, given how much has changed. Nowadays, car navigation guides me perfectly. He immediately started discussing work. This project is highly anticipated by the other party, so be prepared. I smiled challengingly. Don't underestimate me just because I've been toughened up by city life. You've become strong too, my brother said admiringly. Definitely, I've been living life on the edge, and it's made me a lot tougher. It was fate that I would reunite with my brother through this job. He had honed his skills at a major company and launched a venture company using his expertise in mechanical engineering, introducing a patented product to the market. His invention had become a key to revitalizing and profitable businesses. Then, suddenly, our family's factory went bankrupt. He immediately contacted me and proposed this project. Let's go. I psyched myself up, slapped my face, and followed my brother into the factory. Of course, my face couldn't help but soften. As I opened the door to the factory, a cold breeze mixed with nostalgic memories wafted through. It was a scent that gently knocked on the door of distant memories. Yes, this place was my home. And then, like the start of a drama, the shadows of two kneeling figures appeared on the dim factory floor. Welcome, thank you for coming all the way to such a remote place. My mom started talking while still kneeling. We heard that you were willing to help our factory, which is on the verge of bankruptcy. And we are truly, truly grateful. We are deeply thankful. My dad continued, his head still bowed to the ground. Please, lift your heads. We can't talk like this. My brother urged them kindly yet calmly. No, this is the best way we can show our gratitude. We need to demonstrate our sincerity to John from Watson Industries, who came all the way from New York. Seeing the miserable sight of them bowing their heads, I spoke up. Let's start discussing work. Please, lift your heads. At that moment, their bodies twitched and then froze. That voice sounds familiar. They said, slowly lifting their faces. Yes, I recognize it too. You. Yikes. Kelly, it's Kelly, right? Seeing the astonishment on their faces, I couldn't help but burst out laughing. Looks like you finally figured it out. Yes, I'm the Kelly you abandoned in the snowy mountains. Why are you here? We were told John from Watson Industries would come. Yes, I had become the project leader at Watson Industries, a company run by John's dad. After that day, I was helped by John, a friend of my brother. He arranged everything knowing what you two had planned. It was tough. But I worked hard and earned my position. And now, I'm married to the business manager at Watson Industries. Today, I'm here on orders from the president of Watson Industries to revitalize this factory. Got it? That day, my brother was furious about how our parents had treated me and had consulted John. Before entering that snowy mountain, my brother had given me a note. Our parents planned to abandon you on this trip. When the time comes, call this number. As expected, when I called the number, John immediately came to pick me up in his car. He had a wry smile trying to hide his embarrassment. But I knew he had taken the day off in advance and was waiting in a nearby hotel. Thank you for coming to pick me up. Long time no see. How have you been? I'm, as usual, the same. Seriously, being left behind on this snowy mountain is the absolute worst. While saying this, I cried. John silently loaded my bags into the car and drove me away. And the company I joined in New York turned out to be affiliated with John's dad's company. With the recommendation of my brother and the kindness of John, I worked at the company while studying for a year. And then passed the entrance exam to a night university, balancing both school and work. After graduating from university, I was able to transfer to John's dad's company. I used my knowledge to manage the factory and was promoted to head of the division, leading projects promoted by John. As we continued to work together, my respect for him grew into love. And he proposed the next year. We got married, and I continued working, of course. The project I was in charge of supported the return of overseas factories to America. With recent depreciation of the dollar and rising labor costs abroad, the benefits of overseas production were diminishing. And more companies were moving their factories back to America to use the latest machinery for better cost performance and efficiency. One day, while searching for potential sites, my brother contacted me. Our family's factory was on the brink of bankruptcy. It had been supplying machine parts to major companies, but had driven prices too low in a bid to win contracts, drastically reducing profits and accumulating debt. Now, let's return to the scene where my brother and I stepped into our family's factory. As an employee of Watson Industries, my parents suddenly showed a bold attitude. Well, since it's Kelly, we don't need to hold back. That's right. After all, she's our own daughter. It's only natural for her to help her parents in a crisis. I looked at my parents calmly. Are you perhaps misunderstanding something? Huh? I don't think of you as my parents at all. I intend to proceed purely businesslike. You, how ungrateful can you be? I never thought my daughter would be so cruel. It's really disappointing for a mom. My parents approached with an incredible look, but I continued the conversation calmly. The mess in this factory is the result of your reckless management. All managers will be replaced by personnel from the headquarters. That means you two are out. My dad objected, his face turning pale. We're selling the factory, so there'll be cash on hand. I could continue managing, couldn't I? I shook my head and presented them with the reality. You cannot be trusted to manage this factory. What about the debts? This rescue was possible only because of the efforts of this brother, Brian Simpson. But then our livelihood. Well, this is your life, so good luck with that. We'll discuss the details later. As my brother and I got up to leave, our parents slumped down, hanging their heads in defeat. Phew, it's finally over. What are you talking about? It's not over, it's just beginning. This place is going to become a hub for domestic production. Well, with your production management system and my latest machinery, becoming number one in America is certain. Oh, you're wrong. Huh? It's not just America, we're going for number one in the world. When I said this, my brother burst out laughing. As expected, our parents, ousted from the factory, couldn't cover their debts with just the sale of the factory, and are now being forced to work in a frigid factory to pay off their loans. They've asked us for money multiple times, but both my brother and I have completely ignored them. However, feeling somewhat guilty for doing nothing, I sent them a stockpile of disposable hand warmers I had bought during my university days. It was my sarcastic way of showing filial piety, remembering how they left me in the cold. Meanwhile, the factory we took over was infused with new life and shone brightly after renovations. The new factory, by integrating manufacturing, inventory management, and shipping, brought new jobs to the community and earned widespread praise from locals. Now, my husband and I are working on expanding the business department, with new projects focused on promoting American companies overseas and facilitating business partnerships. Although we are both busy, We make it a point to reward ourselves a few times a year by visiting the spa deep in the mountains, especially during the snowy season, which always brings back memories of that parking lot. And this year, we visited again. What's up? Reminiscing again? My husband asked quietly. Yes, this place is like a treasure chest filled with unforgettable memories for me. It's the same for me. Everything started from here. He chuckled softly. I remember how you looked back then, in the middle of a heavy snowfall. Your face is red as a boiled octopus. And your cheeks were so red, you looked just like a child. We looked at each other and couldn't help but burst out laughing. Thank you, my love. Ah, you're welcome. Life's kind of like a story, and it's pretty special to have a tale like ours in the mix.